Hello and welcome once again to Club 40 Audio and our production of The Factory, Recording 741. You know it all, Facebook, Bandcamp, Patreon, Tumblr. But now we are also on SoundCloud. That's right, you can look us up on SoundCloud. Unfortunately, it's under the name Wesley-Critchfield. Look for Club 40 Audio on soundcloud.com/Wesley-Critchfield. I'm working on trying to figure out how to get it changed to Club 40 Audio, but I don't know how to do it. I'm doing all this internet stuff by myself. Somebody help me. We're trying to figure out how to get onto iTunes and have our own RSS feed and all that other kind of good stuff. So look for us, you'll find us. Just Google Club 40 Audio and you should be fine. I should warn you that this is going to be a super long story, but it's going to be in 3 parts. 3 digestible, wonderful parts that you're going to love it. All right, I sound like Donald Trump. It's going to be beautiful. You're going to love it. I promise. I guarantee it. Believe me. Believe me. All right, let's get started on The Factory.
Club 40 Audio presents The Factory.
So you've come again, have you? I'm afraid I'm quite busy this evening. No, you are not an inconvenience at all. It's simply that I am engaged at the moment and cannot take the time to tell you all that I would. Perhaps, yes. Come this way. Here at the factory we pride ourselves in everything we make, but particularly our recording equipment. Not so long ago, we specialized in reel-to-reel audio tape, and we like to keep copies of everything that was recorded on our stock. Now let me see. Here we are, recording 741. Please have a listen to this. It was recorded in the 1930s, and I think you'll find the contents of particular interest. I'll set it up for you. There. Simply press play when you are ready. Now, if you will excuse me, I have some business to take care of. A few of the employees have been getting out of sorts and not performing to factory standards. They need to have a little coaching. But I'll be back before you're through. Please, enjoy.
Recording 7:41. Time 5:35 a.m. Date March 3rd, 1930. 1930 something. It's funny, right now I'm having a hard time remembering what year it is. But it's been a long night, and it's not over yet. In fact, it may never be over. As I look out the window right now, the sun is rising. It's still dark, but I can see the first dim glow of dawn as it breaks over the hills of Hollywood. Hollywood. Funny how in such a short time, the name of one place can come to mean so many different things to people. Paris. Paris means romance. Detroit means cars and business. New York means opportunity and entertainment. And Hollywood, well, Hollywood means all that and more. It wasn't more than 30 years ago, when I was just a young boy in short pants, that Hollywood meant absolutely nothing to anybody. In 1910, it became part of Los Angeles, and that could have been the end for it. But then came Mr. Edison and his magic picture machine, and the next thing you know, All kinds of people are coming to this little town. A little town that isn't so little anymore. And when I said all kinds of people, I wasn't kidding. Ugly people, beautiful people, people with loads of talent and people with no talent at all. All of them coming here, hoping they've got the one thing, that one special something the big shot producers are looking for. Good people, bad people, they all come here. But it's mostly the bad people that concern me. Bad people with bad motives. People that don't really want to get into pictures, but came to prey on the hopes and dreams of those poor dumb saps who think they got a chance. They draw them into bad rackets, especially when a fella gets low on his dough. Just one little job here, just a few hours in the back room of a nightclub there. It's those people I can't stand. People that will ruin this town, ruin the world eventually if they get their hands on the pictures. That's why there's guys like me. I'm a detective. I do my best to hunt down the bad actors before they can get at the good folks. Usually I can only help after something's already happened, but then I do the best I can to make it right. For a price. Guys gotta eat after all, right? A guy's gotta eat. That phrase has new meaning for me after tonight. But there I go again as usual, telling my story wrong and forward. It all started the day Archibald Leach walked into my office. I didn't think much of him at the time. He was a tall, thin, lanky man who could have given Ichabod Crane a run for his money in a scarecrow contest. And then only if the scarecrows had taken all the straw.
Mr. Cooper?
Tryouts for Stan Laurel lookalikes are 2 doors down.
I'm sorry, I don't... I was looking for a detective?
Men usually call first.
I'm sorry, I don't...
Women usually come to the office for the first meetup. Men usually call on the telephone.
Telephone?
Look, are you going to stand around all day asking silly questions? Yes, the telephone. Mr. Graham Bell invented it some time ago now. It's a wonderful modern convenience, but you didn't use it. So you either are unaware of modern technology, or you have something awfully important to discuss that you don't want being overheard by nosy operators.
So, are you Mr. Cooper?
Give the boy a Cupid doll. He can read the name on the door. Well, don't just stand there, Mr. Laurel. Come in. Close the door behind you. Have a seat.
Leach.
How's that?
My name is Leach, not Laurel, and, you're right, Mr. Cooper. I do need your help.
Most people who walk through that door usually do. Either that or they want the power bill paid for the 9th time this month. Can I offer you a drink, Mr. Leach? You look like you need it.
No, thank you. I don't drink.
It's okay, Mr. Leach. It's not against the law anymore. Elliot Ness and his men won't be breaking down the door. And judging from the way you're shaking, you need this more than I do. And I usually need it pretty bad. Here.
I said I don't.
Drink it! There. Now don't you feel better? Now take a deep breath and tell me what the problem is and why you're so nervous. And keep drinking that until it's gone. Then I expect you to have another.
Well, it's like this, Mr. Cooper.
Frank. My name is Frank. Mr. Cooper's been in a pine box for the last 15 years and he needs to stay there.
All right, Frank. Here's the thing. My brother has gone missing. He went out 3 nights ago, and no one has heard from him since.
Is your brother known to disappear for long stretches at a time, Mr. Leach?
No, that's the thing. He's always home, every night, usually no later than 3 a.m. He works in the glass factory as a watchman. He starts at 11 o'clock. He's done by 7. Then if he has any errands, he gets them done and is home by 3 a.m. just to do it all again the next day. He never stays away this long.
Why haven't you taken this to the police?
Oh, I have. But they told me that people go missing around here all the time now, and that there's really nothing they can do until he's been missing for a week or more. They filed a report, but they told me nothing will come of it for quite some time.
Well, Mr. Leach, I'll take the case to look for your brother, but it won't be cheap. I'll need $10 a day plus expenses. And I expect 3 days in advance. As in right now.
Oh, yes. Of course.
Yes. Good. That's all right then. But I keep this much regardless of whether your brother turns up or not. So when you go home and find him relaxing on the sofa, you're still out the $30 at least. Understand?
Perfectly, Mr. Cooper. Here's a picture of my brother.
Huh. He doesn't look a thing like you. Pretty girl with him in the picture.
Yes. My brother was always the lucky one when it came to the ladies. But that's Betty Jean. It's been over between them for nearly 4 months, though.
Really? I'll need her phone number and address.
Excuse me?
I'll need to talk to anybody he's spent a reasonable amount of time with. Is this his most recent doll?
Oh, no. He's had many girls since he and Betty Jean broke it off. At least 4 that I know of.
At least a dame a month, huh? Not bad. All right, Leechy, here's what I need you to do. Write down every place your brother frequents with these dames. All the names and addresses of every girl you can remember. Go home, raid your brother's desk drawers, find his little black book. Then I want you to bring them all back here to me. Wrap up all that information in a nice little box with a pretty little bow on top of it. Then drop it through my mail slot if I'm not here.
And where will you be?
I'm going to start at the movie theater. The one he frequented most. The name and address of which you're going to write down for me right now. And his favorite restaurants, too. I'm going to need a lot of information. I have to admit I didn't think much of the Leach brothers. Archie, he seemed like a square. A nobody. A non-entity. His brother Randall, well, he didn't seem like much of anything either. A handsome guy, probably with a big mouth and a big libido to match. A guy who could never be satisfied with a single dame. Despite my own lack of finding a lady to settle down with, I could never understand that kind of a guy. It's hard enough bumping into old flames you did right by. But it just didn't work out with. Who in their right mind would want to deal with the problems of having wronged a dozen women, or more, in the space of a single year? There's an old saying that one should not defecate where one eats. But guys like Randall Leach, they seem to take pleasure in it. Think about that kind of a guy. They always go back to the same places. The rooftop where they take the girl to see the sunset. The restaurant where they know a guy who knows a guy. And the movie theater. It was nearly 7 p.m. by the time Mr. Leach left my office, so I figured that dinner time was nearly over, and the best place to look for Leach the Elder was at the movies. Archie had given me the name of the El Capitan Theater at 6838 Hollywood Boulevard. I knew where it was, of course. Only 4 minutes' walk from the one that looks like it was designed by a Chinaman. Archie said that his brother always went to the Capitan and sat in the balcony, 3 rows from the front. The feature that night was the revival of a couple of Charlie Chaplin pictures. The one about the kid and the newer one about the tramp's love affair with the blind girl. I had already seen both of them, of course. Besides, I was there to work, not to watch a comedian dance with bread rolls. I sat 2 rows back from Randall's accustomed spot. But first the newsreel and then the cartoon played with no sign of anyone who remotely resembled Randall showing up. It was nearly 20 minutes into the first film when I got my look at him. It wasn't Randall. Certainly not. But I could tell the guy was trouble from the moment he walked past me. He was the kind of guy I can best describe as resembling Edward G. Robinson in Little Caesar, a 2-bit hood. The kind of guy who thinks the world is his just because he says so. He was dressed in a shabby suit, and I could tell that he was either packing heat or was accustomed to doing so on a regular basis. His right hand stayed by his hip, ever at the ready, while his left hand swung free and easy. He sat down about where Randall was supposed to be. He didn't even bother to take off his hat. I watched him through the rest of the movie, and could see he was casing the joint. With the exception of myself and a couple of other men, and one woman I couldn't quite make out because she was seated just below the projection booth. All the other patrons of the balcony were down in front. He didn't seem to be watching the movie either. Rather, he was watching the people, just as I was. I could tell he was looking for a mark. Then, just as the second feature began, I knew he'd made them. A young guy and his girl. The two of them couldn't have been much older than 20. They might not have even been out of high school yet. It was clear from the way the boy moved he'd never had a self-defense class in his life, and he had definitely eaten a few too many jelly donuts. My guess was that the girl had either gone with him out of pity, or that the couple would be a one and done. She was sitting next to him, but he didn't have his arm around her, nor did they hold hands at any point during the picture. After the second picture ended, the boy and girl got up and walked out of the theater. I stood and pretended to look for something. The kids passed me by, and moments later, little Caesar got up and followed. I waited a moment, and then followed after him myself. My reasons for doing so were twofold. First and foremost, I was concerned for the kids. Just because the girl had to suffer through a bad date was no reason for her to get robbed. Or worse. Second, like a shark does when it finds a nice little feeding ground, guys like Caesar tend to return to those same places again and again, looking for another tender morsel. And they didn't get much more tender than these two. I followed the three of them for nearly 5 blocks. I could tell Caesar was waiting for his moment, waiting for the crowds to thin out. I was hoping he might give up after a few moments, when the kids gave him the perfect opportunity.
Flynn, I don't think we should go down that way.
What are you scared of, a dark alley? Come on, there ain't nothing to worry about. It would cut more than 10 minutes off our walk to the bus stop. It's the last one of the night, and I don't want to risk missing it. We'd have to walk a whole 10 miles to get back to your place, and I promised your father I'd have you home before 11.
Well, only if you're sure it's safe.
Sure, I'm sure. I walk down this way all the time, so let's not stand around talking and we'll miss the bus.
Caesar couldn't have asked for a better opening, and he knew it. As soon as the kids disappeared around the corner, he stepped up his pace. He had them. They were his for the taking. Of course, he didn't know about me. Those kids were not going to be the only ones in for a rude awakening this evening.
Alright, kid, that's far enough.
Hey, what's the big...
Oh!
Hey, mister, there's no need for that.
I'll decide what there's a need for. Now, both of you, hand over your wallets, purse, and anything else of value you have on
Do
you.
what he says, Flynn. There's nothing of value in my purse. Let him have it.
Nothing of value, huh? We'll just see about that. And the necklace, too. Hand that over.
This necklace, it was my mother's. It's worthless to anyone but me.
We'll let the pawnbroker be the judge of that. Now hand it down!
Run, you two! Take your valuables and get out of here!
Gee, thanks, mister.
Save your thank yous and get out of here. That bus won't wait. And now for you, little Caesar.
Caesar? Hey, look, mister. I was just trying to make a living. Can't you leave a guy alone?
Making a living, huh? Let me show you how I make a living. I make a living out of putting little pipsqueaks like you in jail. Now, you've probably been working this run for a couple of weeks, so I'm going to ask you this one time. What happened to Randall Leach?
Who?
Randall Leach. Handsome guy, about 30. Probably had a good-looking dame on his arm. Yesterday or the night before, you followed him from the movie theater, didn't you? You tried pulling the same act on them, just like you did on those two kids. Only this time something went wrong and you ended up plugging him, didn't you?
No, I swear, I don't know anything about it. I haven't shot anyone.
Never?
Well, not in the last 2 weeks, anyway.
Not in the last 2 weeks. Ugh! I hit him a couple of more times, just for good measure. I was sure the little rat had it coming. Then I threw him into a narrow gap between buildings. There was no light down in that space, and all I could see was his feet. I was just about to step into that darkness when all of a sudden, his feet disappeared from view.
No. Please, dear God, no. Let me
I
go.
thought for a moment
Keep away
he had
from
gotten
me.
up
Let me
quickly,
go.
but suddenly his voice was coming from above me, high above, 10, 15 feet, and getting further away by the second. I looked up where the sound was coming from, and against the black of night I saw a blacker form. 2 of them. One was dragging the other. It was too dark and the shadows mingled so that I couldn't make out any details, but I knew that the great lump near to the bottom was Caesar. Somehow, someone, or something thing had pulled him out of the dark alley and managed to get him up onto the roof, 4 stories above, in a matter of seconds. I might have tried to follow, but there was no point. As quick as I had seen the shadow leap out of the dark alley and onto the roof, it was gone, taking Caesar away, his screams now nothing more than echoes in the night. A wiser guy probably would have turned tail right then, called Archibald Leach, gave him back the $30, and told him he was off the case. But I've never been accused of being the brightest bulb in the drawer. I brought out the small flashlight I keep on me for just such an occasion. I shone the light down into that dark passageway. There was nothing there. No doors, no windows lower than the 2nd story, and no way out on the other end. A 3rd building boxed in the alleyway, which couldn't have been more than 8 feet wide. In short, there was no way out of that alley. Not unless you were an Olympic gymnast or Superman. And Caesar had clearly been neither. I went home after that. Any lead I might have had for that night was gone with Caesar. And, truth be told, I doubted he knew anything to begin with. Now I would never know for sure. But I planned to start again fresh the next night. I thought about calling the police and telling them what I had seen, but I wouldn't have known where to begin. While I'd been out, Archie had gotten me Randall's little black book and other names and addresses he'd found among his brother's things. I had gone down the list of girls and called nearly every name in the book. But as I was doing so, a pattern started to emerge. More than a few girls hung up on me as soon as I mentioned his name, which was not unexpected. But when I called one of the numbers that had a little black line through it...
Hello, Mrs. Carter?
Yes?
Could I speak with Elizabeth, please?
Who is this, please?
My name's Cooper. I was calling to see if Elizabeth knew anything about the whereabouts of a friend of mine. He didn't leave a number, and I found this one. I was hoping he might be with her.
Well, Mr. Cooper, I don't know where your friend got this number, but my daughter Elizabeth has been dead for nearly 2 years now.
Oh my, I'm very sorry for your loss.
What did you say your friend's name was?
Leach. Randall Leach.
I don't know that name, but Elizabeth had a number of friends I knew nothing about. She was a popular girl, always going to parties. That's probably what got her murdered.
3 more times it happened just like that. Every time there was a line through a girl's name, she was dead. Dead or missing. Only Mrs. Carter specified murder, but I knew it couldn't be a coincidence. We all know someone who's died in the last few years, sure. And maybe this kid had more than his share of bad luck. After the 4th call, though, I knew there was something to this. If they'd all been old ladies, that'd been one thing. But when a man under 30 has just as many dead girlfriends as he has years of life, it means something. I gave up on calling all the other numbers and selected only those that had been blacked out. Without fail, every one, missing, dead, or the number was disconnected.
Mr. Leach, it would seem your brother lived up to his namesake.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Cooper?
Your brother... Well, there's just no nice way to say this, Mr. Leach. Your brother is a murderer.
That can't be right. There must be some mistake.
It's possible, of course. In this job, you learn to never underestimate what can happen in this world. But, Mr. Leach, your brother had over 97 names in his little black book. Of those 97, 26 of them belong to girls who are now presently deceased. Last I knew of, we haven't had an epidemic of influenza or any other such plague in the last 10 years or so. There's no explanation for someone of your age knowing so many healthy young girls who are dead or ran away. People run away to Hollywood, Mr. Leach. They rarely run away from it.
Are you sure they're all dead, Mr. Frank?
Well, not all of them for sure. 10 are dead, 12 are missing, and 4 of them had their phone lines disconnected by the phone company for lack of payment, or because someone else took over their apartment after they disappeared. It's possible some of those girls gave up on the dream and took the midnight train back home to Mama and left everything they couldn't carry in a duffel bag behind. But I wouldn't count on it, Mr. Leach.
Well, what are you gonna do?
What I have to do, Mr. Leach. I'm going to turn all this evidence over to the authorities. I wanted to let you know what's going on because I imagine in the next few days they'll be turning your house inside out looking for clues as to his whereabouts. And I should also warn you, Mr. Leach, that you might not be above suspicion either.
Me? How could they possibly blame me for it?
Two brothers hunting down girls in the night? That's a big headline, Archie, old boy. Could make Leopold and Loeb look like amateurs. Especially if I'm right and all 26 of those girls turn up dead. Even if it's only 10, it could be very bad for you, Mr. Leach. After all, you lived with him. You knew his habits. Surely something should have clued you in, even if you weren't involved.
This is insane. I can't be accused of the murder of these girls. I don't know any of the girls. I've never even had a date.
Really?
Yes, really. It was always Randall. He was the one the ladies loved, not me. I couldn't even get Sally Pasternak to look at me in the 10th grade. Why, every woman I've ever known is still alive as far as I know. Except for my mother. Maybe it's good she's gone so she doesn't have to see this.
Well, I did just what I told Archie I had to do. Turned over everything to the police. I copied down a few more bits of relevant information, and then gave everything to them. I put in a good word for Archie. Told Police Detective Canal that I didn't suspect the kid of any wrongdoing. After all, why would he have come to me if he'd been involved and their whole racket could have been exposed? A couple of weeks went by. And while the story made some copy in the local press, it didn't seem to make half the hullabaloo one might have expected. It turned out of the 26 girls, only 15 of them were confirmed dead or missing. 2 have died of seemingly natural causes. 1 in a car accident, but the 4th was suspicious. 11 of them had indeed gone home to Mama, and were back where they came from, living out lives of silent desperation. But that still left another 11 missing girls, and with the uniformity of their disappearances, it could only be assumed that Randall Leach was at the heart of it. But since he had disappeared and couldn't be questioned or prosecuted until he turns up again, that'll be the end of that. Of course, he's never going to turn up again. He's never going to turn up because he's dead. I'm quite sure of that. As to how I know, well, I'm getting to that.
What will happen next? What happened to Randall Leach? Who was the mysterious figure who dragged away little Caesar like a yelping puppy crying for his mama? Will Frank ever close his office window? For the answers to all these questions and more, tune in for the next exciting episode of The Factory, Recording 741. In the first part of The Factory, Recording 741, the parts of Archibald Leach and Little Caesar were played by Josh Momini. The part of Flynn was played by Rick Spavero. The part of the young girl and Mrs. Carter were played by Judith Critchfield. And the part of Frank Cooper, Private Eye, was played by Wesley Critchfield, with Sean Dugan as the Toy Maker. The Factory Recording 741 was an original play written, produced, and directed for Club 40 Audio by Wesley Critchfield. Please remember to subscribe, whatever that means. Check out all the amazing things Club 40 Audio has to offer on Patreon, Bandcamp, and SoundCloud, whatever those are. And remember to give us a like on the Facebook. You mean one of those directories we used to have in college?
Just read the script, loudmouth.
The Factory is a production of Club 40 Audio, and all rights are reserved. Mammy!